Hi, I'm Catherine Wooley. I'm a game designer at Media Molecule, and I have been a game designer now for over 10 years since graduating from university. The games industry is a really fun place to work in. It's a very creative, loving, caring industry full of amazing people and amazing teams and amazing companies throughout the world that work on games that you might even be playing today. So I've been asked a few questions from some lovely girl guides out there who sent in some questions, and I'm going to give you some answers to those now. Hopefully your question's in here if you asked one, and I hope you like my answers. Otherwise, games is a super fun industry, as I mentioned, so I hope if maybe you hadn't thought about it as a job that you could do in the future, I hope maybe after my answering of questions you might consider it. How did you get interested in a career in games design, and how did you get into game designing? So when I was younger, I used to love playing games. I have a twin sister who also works at Media Molecule, and we would play games together, we'd play games on our own, we'd just have loads of fun jumping into these little worlds. But I didn't necessarily know it was a career that I could do. Some games had level editors in them, so you could kind of get into the game and tinker about with the pieces and try and make your own levels like the ones that you play. And I played about with that a little bit, but I didn't think much more of it than that. Then as I grew a bit older, I then started noticing some game companies were based in the UK. I thought a lot of them were based in Japan because I did play a lot of Japanese games. But then I was like, oh, this game's from the UK. Oh, this one's been made in the UK. And I started seeing where these companies were. And then when we were looking at university degrees, my sister had noticed there was a bunch in games design, and I started kind of looking into those. And then I think from that point onwards, I kind of realised it could be something that I could do, but I didn't necessarily know if it was something I could do. So it kind of went from there, really. From then going to university, broadening kind of the idea of games other than just the knowledge I had of them, and figuring out a bit more how they worked and how they tick. And I guess that's kind of how I got into it. From finishing university, I started working at Electronic Arts. I made interactive books for kids on the DS, which was really fun. And then from there onwards, I then started working more on level design and working on character-based games as opposed to interactive books. But that's kind of how I got into it. Next question. How many women do you work alongside or have previously in your field? So I currently work alongside so many amazing women at Media Molecule. We all come from different backgrounds, we work in different roles, some in the same roles, well, similar roles. But then previous companies I've worked at, I've been the only woman on a team. However, once the team grew in size, I wasn't the only woman on the team anymore. And then I've worked on a team where it's been a 50-50 split. However, there was only 4 of us on the team, so it's not really quite the same as if you're maybe a 120 person team. It really differs based on the companies you work at. However, if there's a lack of any kind of role, it's programmers and designers. I've always found I've never worked with a huge amount of women in those roles. However, at Media Molecule I have, which is great. So if you want to work in games, you totally should. Don't let anything stop you. Next question. Were there any barriers you had to overcome to be where you are today? Is there any advice you can share with us about how you did this? So I think my main barriers have been gaining the trust of others, which generally comes with starting a new job. So if you start a new job, of course, people won't have worked with you before, so they won't necessarily know how you work or if you're good at what you do. So the way you, of course, do this is by proving yourself, doing the work that you get set out to do, asking questions, answering questions that people have about your work, and being confident in what you do. I always feel that a bit of confidence and enthusiasm can help you overcome barriers. what role do you think games have to play in the shaping of lives for young people? So I feel games has such an important role in shaping the lives of young people. This is like, I feel one of the key reasons for this is because games are a popular form of entertainment, but they're also a form of interactive entertainment. You're a lot more involved when you're playing a game because you're not just taking in the story, taking in the characters, the music, the art. You're also you're involved. You're holding a controller. You've learnt these buttons. You're learning where everything is. You're learning what you can do with your character, how you can explore your world. It's stimulating more of your brain, and I think that's good because although people might think, oh, you're just playing games, there's more to it than that. And then there's other games out there like Dreams, which we recently released at Media Molecule, which allows you to create your own things. So it's creatively engaging. And then there's the social aspect of games as well. Maybe you don't have brothers or sisters, but you could pick up a game and play it with your family, or you could play it with your friends online. Or, if maybe you don't like talking to people face to face, you could do it in a game instead, and it kind of eases that tension that you might have. How do you feel being part of a team leading the way in gender equality? So I'm so happy and amazed to be a part of such a team leading the way in gender equality. Like, it massively helps, of course, that our studio head, Siobhan Reddy, is leading the way for us. She creates such a caring atmosphere and studio for us to work within. We're almost like a big old family together. And, it's so important for a role model like Siobhan to be there, paving the way for our studio, because it then means we have a larger percentage of women working at the studio compared to previous studios that I've worked at. And this is one of the important reasons for role models, because they create that vision and atmosphere and a thought of feeling included for girls out there or for women out there, that maybe that's a place that you could work at or you'd feel comfortable working at. What do you think needs to happen to continue to get girls engaged in STEM and for barriers around gaming and games design to be broken? So I always feel we need to get like a hook in from a really early age. It's hard to present STEM roles sometimes because they aren't necessarily like a glamorized role or job that you could do. And they aren't necessarily things that they're not outward facing jobs. You don't kind of see them every day. They might be just in the background. You might see the end product, like a game that's come out or a bridge that's been created or an aircraft in the air, but you don't think about the process necessarily of how it got there. And that's what the importance of STEM roles are. However, I think we need these role models early on that can kind of feed out this information so people can be aware of them, aware of these jobs, aware of these really cool industries that you could jump into, but you might not necessarily know about. And there's also the other issue that at least I remember having in school, which was, if you're interested in like learning and science and maths, it might be discouraged among your peers. They might not think it's cool. It might be more cool to do this thing or this thing. So then necessarily it kind of pushes those jobs away from like people's minds maybe. And there's things to try and encourage young people to get into these roles. Like STEM ambassadors do a good job of it. However, there's so many schools across the country and there's only so many STEM ambassadors that can go out and encourage these ways of learning. But we've also got things like the BAFTA Young Game Designer competition that happens every year, which is a competition hosted by BAFTA that is for 10 to 18-year-olds to try and make their own games. Now, if you can't actually program, that's okay, because you can also come up with an idea of a game and submit it as well. So we have all these different things that kind of try to help encourage STEM roles and game design and game creating. But if there's not a teacher or an assistant or a helper to kind of bring that information out there, how are people supposed to know that it exists, right? Which is where maybe then the role models come in. it's hard. It's a tough one because it's like hitting your head on a wall. You just can't get anywhere. What's been your best achievement? So this is really tough because I could very easily just be like, oh, the idea of shipping a game is the best thing in the world. So spending potentially years of your life working away on something, and then working with this amazing team, everyone having input, the game going out there, and then seeing the game on a shop floor, like inside of a shop, is amazing. And especially if you see someone pick it up and look at it or talk about it with their friends, that's like super super cool. But I think the thing I'd have to narrow it down to is, so basically when I was at university still, Media Molecule appeared when I was in my final year, and Media Molecule is based in a place called Guildford in Surrey, and I was like, oh, I feel I need to go there. There were lots of companies in Guildford, so I thought, oh, if I move to Guildford, I can try and get a job at Media Molecule, and work in the games industry. It'll be amazing. And so I moved there. I didn't go back home. I didn't stay where I went to university, and I moved to outside of Guildford where it was a bit cheaper. I applied for Media Molecule. Nothing really happened to it, but I then since found out Media Molecule generally don't hire people who are graduates, although actually we take on lots of interns now, which is amazing. But so I didn't get a job at Media Molecule. I got a job at Electronic Arts about a month after moving, and my kind of career started from there. But I work at Media Molecule now, so that's completely amazing. I've been at Media Molecule for nearly 3 years now, so I like to think that's my best achievement, that I set out this goal back when I was in university, didn't achieve it straight away, took a little while, but then I got there, so that makes me happy. It just took a little while, which is fine. It meant I had more time to work on other games at other developers. So you've been working on a game called Dreams. How have your own dreams changed over the years, and do you have a strong one now? So I really love this question. The dreams in my life haven't necessarily changed. When I was a kid, I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I went to university, I was like, yes, I will work in games. And I work in games now, which is amazing. I mean, I've been working in games for 10 years. So I guess I've had an overarching goal of wanting to make amazing games with amazing teams. That is still happening. I'd love to see where I am 10 years from now. I don't have a set goal of what games I want to be working on, what studio I want to work at. I'm really happy at Media Molecule. I'm really happy working on Dreams. So I'm kind of one of those people that like to feel safe and secure, but not necessarily know exactly where I will be in 10 years' time. I don't have those kind of, at this age I need to be this, at this age I need to be this. I don't feel like people should run their lives like that. It's good to have goals and it's good to want to achieve things, but at the end of the day, if you then don't achieve those goals, you'll only feel upset from it. I think my only other goal, which has only come into light over the last couple of years, is kind of the idea that it's okay to have a family, which might seem like a weird thing to be saying when talking about my job and stuff like that. But throughout like the previous, 7 years in games, when a lot of your development team and a lot of people in studios are men, generally you don't have the same kind of support if you're a woman that you would in a role at another company potentially. So I've always felt like, oh no, you have to work, you have to do your work, you can't pause for family, you can't pause to have a life, you need to keep doing your work. But then I think since moving to Media Molecule and talking to people and knowing that it's actually okay to want to have a family, is nice, because I've kind of never felt like I've had anything allowing me to do stuff like that. So hopefully in the future I will have myself a little family, because what was it? Siobhan did a talk at BAFTA. That might be a couple of years ago now, and I loved I'll quote something of hers, which is probably completely off, but it's basically that we're making games, we're not curing cancer. So if you need to pause with things, that's absolutely fine. What would be your ideal creation within dreams? So it's gonna sound super cheesy and weird, but my ideal creation within dreams is what dreams are made of. So I really love when dreams get really kind of surreal and crazy and weird, and like, you open a door in your house and it actually leads to your school, and then you realize you're at school with your parents instead of your friends. I don't know, that's like a very simple example of it, but that's kind of what I really like. So that's kind of what I explore the Dreamiverse for, in games, which is kind of how you search for things. So an example of some of my favorite creations that I've played, there's this really weird one where you're on a fashion catwalk and you're having to match some shapes with your arms and legs in order to do a good job. There's one where you're cooking dinner, but you're using your right hand to speak on the phone, and you're just cooking with your left hand. There's another one of some like super detailed, gorgeous breakfast, and then there's also a strange breakfast, which uses the gorgeous breakfast. Or there's a simple retelling of Humpty Dumpty, but it's not your normal kind of retelling of Humpty Dumpty. It's really kind of creepy and scary, but I love it. So like, that's kind of what my favourite creations and dreams are. I'd love to know what advice Catherine would give to young women on the brink of making career decisions. So I think it's a super good question. When I was faced with having to make decisions for GCSEs when I was in school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of went with what I thought was interesting and what could help me. I always loved computers from an early age, and felt I could do lots with them. And I was like, yes, I'll do IT. But then IT didn't really cover the kind of things that I think I could have benefited from, unlike school now where you can learn computer science, I believe. And then I had similar issues when I was picking my A levels, and the same with university. I feel one of the best pieces of advice I could give is, if you make a decision for your career, whether that's picking a subject, or deciding to go into a male-dominated industry, or what was the other part? Male-dominated, or just a career crossroads in general. I think it's that if you make a decision and it doesn't turn out how you hoped, that doesn't matter. It's absolutely fine. I know so many people over the years that have decided to just change their career, whether that means joining the games industry or even leaving the games industry because maybe it's not for them. And it works as long as you have people that can help support you. If it's really on your mind and you want to try and decide if the career is for you, perhaps look deeper into the career. Look at people, look at role models, see what, if there are any women working in that field, what they seem like. Maybe if you're thinking of university in the future, look up courses now, even if you're a bit young, to see kind of what they're doing, if they have links to other industries, if they have links to people in companies or studios, because then they might have contacts. There's no harm in like communicating with people. Of course, if you're under 18, I'd say probably have a parent do this for you, but you can always reach out to teachers or lecturers and try and find out more information. And the same with people that work at companies as well. If there is an amazing woman out there who's doing the job that you want to do, maybe try and contact her. Have your mum or your dad help with that. Don't do it yourself. I don't recommend that. But just give it a go, because the worst thing that could happen is they don't respond to you, and that's not really any harm, is it? What's the best, most well-known thing she has ever designed? So it's really funny working in the games industry because not everyone will play everything that others play, if that makes any sense. So the game we recently released at Media Molecule, Dreams, is out on PlayStation 4. It's an amazing game where you can create whatever you could dream of, basically. Or you can play other people's creations and see what crazy things they're doing, what amazingly intricate, detailed things they're creating. But not everyone has a PlayStation 4, so not everyone can play it. I've also worked on Harry Potter games. So those might be more well known for some people because they came out when the films came out. So they might have played them or seen them or know about them because of the film. I also worked on a kind of really creepy, scary game called Alien Isolation, which is probably more well known by people who work in the games industry or people who like the film series that it's based upon. And I really enjoyed working on that game. I spent a long portion of my life on that. So a lot of people know that game. And then I worked on some really small interactive books for children on the DS back when I started in the games industry. And although generally no one in the games industry will know about those, I can look on Amazon and read all the reviews from mums who are like, this made my child read books, and that just warms my heart. So there's people out there that will know those, but less people as well. So yeah, it's really hard in games. I'm just happy that I know that people have played the games that I've worked on, and hopefully people watching this may have heard of some of the games I've just mentioned, or they may not, or maybe you'll go out and have a look at them. Which award are you most proud of? So this is cool and crazy as well, because it's like somehow over the years I've amassed a bunch of awards. I really don't know how it happened. By luck, I don't know. And I'm so grateful and amazed and humbled by all of them. I think the quite a recent one of the most 100 most influential women in 2019 in games. I was so surprised and amazed that I was in that list. There were so many amazing women in that list, but I also thought it was great because it was such a large list, and it was showing just how many, I keep saying amazing amazing women there are in games. So I felt truly grateful to be in that list. I think I've had other awards that I've gotten as well, and I've just been completely surprised or amazed because someone I've worked with has nominated me for it, or somehow I've been picked from like some crazy long list, or I won something and went up against amazing women from other industries as well. So yeah, it's hard to pick one that you're most proud of. When it comes to game development, I always like to think that the award to be most proud of is getting a BAFTA. So BAFTAs, which you might know from the films and TV industries, they do a Games Awards ceremony as well. And I've worked on one game that has won a BAFTA so far, and that was Alien Isolation. And winning a BAFTA is, I don't know, I feel the most prestigious award that you can get working in games. So I've got my fingers crossed that Dreams does really good and wins a bunch of nominations and awards. So that's my kind of awards for the future, fingers crossedness. So yeah. I've mentioned dreams quite a bit throughout my responses today, and I thought it might be a little bit fun to give you a little bit of a taster into what kind of things you could maybe do in dreams. Of course, we've not been able to go to a big field today to have a festival and do all these kind of things on a live stage. However, we thought it might be quite fun to make a festival within dreams. We've put together a very small little game made of user creations of things that we thought you'd kind of find at the festival. There might be some things missing. You might have some inspirations to what you'd add to your own festival. So we hope you have fun watching this and the rest of the festival. I hope you enjoy the rest of the Adventures at Home Festival, and all the other really cool speakers that you've got videos to watch and learn from, and hope you be inspired by.